Listen to what President Donald Trump said about men competing in women's sports.
In a few moments, I'll sign a historic executive order to ban men from competing in women's sports. It's about time.
That was on February the 6th. President Trump has finally put an end to the madness, let's just call it what it is, of allowing men to participate in women's sports. And people, both Democrat and Republican, Christian and non-Christian, are rejoicing. That's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. But before I get into that, big thanks to everyone who supports my social media ministry with your prayers and donations. If you enjoy my content and would like to financially partner with me to reach more people with the gospel, click on the donate link in the video description. It will take you to my donor box page where you can make a one-time contribution or set up a monthly pledge. You can select one of the suggested amounts or choose a custom amount that works for you. Your support helps keep my ministry going. One of the first things I did after I watched Donald Trump's executive order on YouTube is go straight to the comments to see what people had to say. One commenter wrote, "Don't agree with Trump on much, but the idea that the USA allowed men to compete in women's sports is ridiculous." I totally agree. You don't have to be a Trump supporter or even a Christian to see how bad of an idea this is. Let's be honest. Women have no chance when it comes to competing with men in sports because we are just built differently. Another commenter wrote, "I get sick of hearing about the poor trans kids who don't get to play and their dreams are crushed. What about all of the girls who spent their whole lives training just to have a guy that couldn't compete against the guys steal their dream?" This reminds me of Lia Thomas, formerly known as William Thomas. I'm sure many of you know the story. William Thomas was a male swimmer who swam for 3 seasons on the men's swim team in the University of Pennsylvania. He was ranked 462nd for the 500-yard freestyle in the men's division. But after transitioning to a woman and competing in women's swimming, he won the NCAA Division I championship in the 500-yard freestyle. So he jumped from 462nd place to first place after transitioning. Tell me how that's fair. You know, Genesis chapter 1 verse 27 tells us, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them." God created 2 genders in the human race, male and female. You can take all the hormones you want and have surgery to alter your appearance, but biologically, you are the gender you were born with for the rest of your life. You can try to fool yourself or others, but you can't fool science. For example, if I transitioned to a woman today and in 100 years after they dug my bones up, you know what they would say? This was a man. Because things like the pelvis and the skull and other skeletal features are just different between a man and a woman. Also, no matter what you do, a man can never have a baby and a woman can never impregnate someone. These things are just biologically impossible. And biological males are naturally faster and stronger than women, which makes it unfair for them to compete in women's sports. This should be obvious, but for the sake of trans rights, the former administration allowed them to do just that. And I do think that trans people should not be discriminated against. If that's how you want to live your life, that's your choice. But that doesn't mean that we should trample on women's rights now, because that's not fair to them either. Listen to what Trump said next.
Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
As it should have been in the first place. And you know, this is not only a political issue, it's part of the spiritual war that Satan is waging against God and humanity in these last days. Satan wants to blur the lines between the sexes because he seeks to undermine God's creation and distort his divine order. From the very beginning, Satan's strategy has been to confuse, deceive, and lead people away from the truth. Just as he deceived Eve in the Garden of Eden by questioning God's word, today he is using gender confusion to make people reject their God-given identity. By blurring the line between male and female, Satan is attacking not only individual identity, but also the foundation of family, marriage, and biblical roles, which are essential to God's plan for humanity. If you are watching this and questioning your own gender identity, I encourage you to embrace what you are. God didn't make a mistake when He made you, and He has a plan for you just the way you are.
So in recent years, the radical left has waged an all-out campaign to erase the very concept of biological sex and replace it with a militant transgender ideology. Female athletes have been forced onto the front lines, and men claiming to be girls have stolen more than 3,500 victories, that's a lot, and invaded more than 11,000 competitions designed for women.
3,500 victories. That's unacceptable. These are not only wins that these young women are losing, but the future of some of these athletes are being stolen from them.
Last year, a male cyclist posing as a woman competed in the 800-mile Arizona trail race, a very big deal in cycling, and obliterated the women's course record by nearly 5.5 hours.
I think Trump misspoke here because the winner of the 2024 Arizona trail race was indeed a biological woman, and her name is Alexandra Huchin. I'm not sure, so feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think he may have been thinking about Austin Killips, a trans woman cyclist who has won several races, including a 2023 race in North Carolina where she won by 5 minutes. Watch what the second place finisher said about the race.
But yeah, I just kind of couldn't match, Austin and some of the single track and, the power. It's just not comparable, so.
Yeah, the power is not comparable because you're racing a man. I think she knew that, and the look on her face tells it all. She had no chance, and it's sad because she was just robbed of a victory.
But you have to hear the weightlifting records. You think that's bad. The weightlifting's worse. In 2023, a man in women's powerlifting broke 2 world records and outlifted his closest female opponent in one event by 440 pounds.
Trump was absolutely right about that one. In 2023, a Canadian trans woman by the name of Anne Andres won a women's regional masters championship, setting multiple Canadian records and unofficial world records when she lifted, get this, 463 pounds more than her closest competitor. She didn't just lift 463 pounds for the win, which is a lot. She lifted 463 pounds more than the competition. But in a humorous turn of events, Alvi Silverberg, head coach for Team Canada Powerlifting, which is a women's team, frustrated after watching his students lose over and over again to Anne Andres, wanted to defend his team, so he decided to compete as a female in a powerlifting competition called the Heroes Classic in Alberta, Canada, where Anne Andres was volunteering, and he broke Anne Andres' bench press record in her face. He wasn't even trying to look like a woman. He had a beard and everything, and the powerlifting competition let him do it, which goes to show how ridiculous this woke nonsense had become. And Andres posted a response to this on Instagram, and this is what he had to say.
Somebody did show up at the meet today with malicious intent, and you know what? It was nothing. It was just entirely ignored. People lifted, I volunteered, everyone was happy that I was there. And it really struck me that maybe my participation isn't necessarily fair. I mean, there's science, whatever.
Yeah, because you're a man competing as a woman.
And who could forget last year's Paris Olympics, where a male boxer stole the women's gold medal after brutalizing his female opponent so viciously that she had to forfeit just after 46 seconds, and she was a championship fighter.
That was the fight between Algerian boxer Aman Khalif and Italy's Angelina Carini. Carini quit the fight after 46 seconds, claiming that she had never been hit so hard and she felt intense pain in her nose. Oddly enough, Killips had been previously disqualified from the Women's World Championships after failing a gender eligibility test by the IBA because DNA tests indicated he had XY chromosomes, which would make him a man. However, the International Olympics Committee allowed him to compete in the 2024 Olympics, affirming that he met the necessary eligibility criteria. And after his Olympic win, Killips consistently affirmed his identity as a woman, and several pictures surfaced depicting him as a young girl. His father even released his birth certificate, identifying him as a female. But wait, the plot thickens, because in November, a leaked medical report was published in the French magazine La Correspondant, claiming that the Algerian boxer has XY chromosomes and male characteristics. Just so you know, this report has yet to be verified. But in addition to that, just recently, Aman Killips was banned by the IBA from participating in the upcoming Women's World Championship boxing match due to his XY genetic makeup.
And actually, they had two women or two people that transitioned, and both of them won gold medals, and they won them very convincingly.
Yeah, that was Aman Killips and Lin Yuting from China. In 2023, Lin Yuting was also disqualified from the Women's World Boxing Championships by the IBA after failing a gender eligibility test. But the IOC still let Lin Yuting participate in the 2024 Paris Olympics, where Yuting won a gold medal by beating up a Polish woman.
But all of that ends today because with this executive order, the war on women's sports is over.
I'm glad, for one, it never should have started. And most Americans support this as well. An online post from NBC News reads, "Most Americans oppose including trans athletes in sports," poll finds. Nearly 70% of U.S. adults say transgender athletes should be allowed to compete only on sports teams that correspond with the sexes they were assigned at birth, Gallup found.
With my action this afternoon, we're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding.
Now that's big. It blocks dissent because even now, if you have schools in the United States that receive taxpayer dollars that don't agree with the president's decision, they will have to choose between allowing trans women to compete or losing their federal funding. And I think they're going to go with the money because if they don't, they're probably not going to have much of a sports program left.
So this will effectively end the attack on female athletes at public K-12 schools and virtually all U.S. colleges and universities.
Donald Trump's executive order banning trans athletes from women's sports is a turning point in the fight to protect fairness in women's sports. It is a win for female athletes who have dedicated their lives to competing on a level playing field. And it's a step in the right direction for maintaining biological distinctions that are essential to sports. While this issue has been controversial, the overwhelming support for keeping men out of women's sports across political and ideological lines shows that common sense is prevailing. At the end of the day, this isn't just about athletics. It's about truth, fairness, and standing firm against the forces trying to distort God's design. Click on the screen to check out some more of my videos. I have a lot of good Christian videos, which I'm sure you'll enjoy if you liked this one. Also, please like and share this video to help spread God's word. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.